So, good morning and welcome to this day 2 of the Nordic Energy Equality Conference 2022. So it's great to see you again today. I'm guessing that some of you, or maybe all of you, were out and having a good time in the very sunny, summery Oslo last night. I hope you did that. So, I need to repeat some practical information that I also said yesterday, but we have to remember that emergency exits are out there, or if we're on stage, they're also out here. And toilets are out there in the common area. And also that this event is being streamed live to NEEN's platform, and highlights from the event will be available through NEEN and Nordic Energy Research web pages. And if you want to post questions during this event, you can use you can go to slido.com, and if you will see then the code, which is, and are we going to see that slide maybe with the code? Well, the code is coming very soon. Yes. So slido.com, and the code is hashtag 5057411. So then please post questions during the presentations. So then over to today's first speaker. He is joining us from Chalmers in Gothenburg to tell us more about his research on gender and energy. He gathers the state-of-the-art research of gender and energy and find best practices while also developing ways to counter organizational and institutional inertias and to design inclusive, just and efficient technologies. Martin Hultman is an associate professor in science, technology, and environmental studies at the Department of Technology Management and Economics at Chalmers University of Technology. I rehearsed to say that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the environmental. Yeah. So Martin, you are a widely published author, and you write chronicles, books, and academic papers on matters concerning energy, climate, and environmental, it's a hard word to say, issues, and your work have been translated into several languages, and you will now present on gender in policy and implementation for achieving transitions to sustainable energy, a glimpse of a global research program. Please, yes. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure. So today I'm going to present two things. So first, I'm going to say a bit about fairly new, inaugurated last year, a global research program on energy and gender, in which we do a bit of a policy work, analysis, but also trying to come up with very practical ways of achieving transformation regarding these type of issues. And then I'm going to say very short about my research on energy and masculinities, and not least in connection to a couple of education material that I've been part of developing. So I was already introduced here, so I'm not going to say that much more about myself, but I have a very interdisciplinary background and been able to work together with engineers and social scientists and natural scientists on energy issues for 20 years or so. I've been focusing in specifically on masculinities and energy of lately. These are some of my publications, which also is about a wide range of subjects and kind of exemplify the three research groups that I lead at Chalmers, not only gender and energy and masculinities. I also do work on entrepreneurship and sustainability, as well as climate change denial, why we haven't acted fast enough on the climate crisis and the knowledge that we have. And I want to emphasize that here today also, that I'm really grateful to be here. And we have a privileged position in the world. and I think in some sense it's our responsibility to act with that also. We know that with Russia's war against Ukraine and the food crisis that is also turning up, as well as energy prices getting higher, we know that people like us need to take even a more responsibility maybe, because we have the opportunity to do that. So the first thing I'm going to speak about, as I said, is our newly inaugurated research program, Gender and Energy. So I was asked a couple of years ago by the Swedish Energy Agency if I would not, under the auspices of International Energy Agency, to set up a research program on these issues. Unfortunately, I didn't have the full-time capacity to work with that at the moment, but I was really grateful to have a colleague of mine, Anna Åberg, who had some time and the capacity, much better than me, to actually get this global research program together. So we did that, and it was accepted 2020. And then we had a kind of establishment phase, and now we're in the research phase. And later on, we're going to go to, as you know, the synthesis phase. We are a group of scholars and also policy advisors, and some who works on consultancies across the globe. So we have members from Australia, Austria, the Netherlands, and Sweden, Ireland, United States. And we also work in collaboration with researchers from Rwanda, and up until recently, we also had a working group in the UK that unfortunately is not with us any longer. If you are interested to connect to us, if you are interested to share your work with us, or if you're interested actually maybe to connect to us and then apply for funding from your own funding agencies, please do that. We will most certainly have a new phase of research coming up after 2023, so you're very welcome to join. So what do we do then? Our work is divided into 3 tasks. So the subtask 1 is learning across regions and best practices. And as you saw, we have some regions and countries, but we are very much open to many more to include and get a much wider pool of knowledge to bring together. The subtask 2 is understanding and countering systemic inertias in the energy system, and that is through analysis, but also through policy advice. So with the first learning, we then bring that into understanding the policies. And then the subtask 3 is about also designing inclusive and efficient technological interventions. So norm critical design and speculative design within the energy field. We are working with that in the subtask 3. And here we are doing research-based and gender-aware policies, identifying barriers and trying to find ways to counter them, and then have these efficient and inclusive design process and technologies. So a bit more detailed, it looks like this. I'm not going to go into that. It's too much text, as you see. But we have been doing case studies on best practices, and we are about to write this report right now. Colleagues of mine, they will go to Manchester next week in the big energy conference there on social science and present some work. We have also done some policy workshops and these type of presentations and networking. And the last year, we're going to bring this all together and also work with these innovations and designs on how actually we can bring this knowledge into a material form. Sorry, I saw that you were looking into that there. And behind me now, you see an example of the analysis that we are doing with the policy. So we are going through energy policies in the countries that is part of the research program. Austria, Sweden, Netherlands, and so forth. And here we are trying to be both on a detail level, so trying to find out how and in which way do the countries in their energy policies mention gender dimensions? How do they describe that they are working with this as an issue? But we are also looking into the policies more overall and analyze what is not said about gender equality. So what could be said, because we know that gender equality is part of all types of work within this area, but it is mentioned only in connection to some questions and not to other questions. And that is also of interest for us. When, so to speak, is the gender dimension marginalized or even ignored in some areas? So, for example, when energy is connected to transport, gender is very much part of that discussion, not least in Sweden. But for example, when gender is connected to, or when energy, is connected to wind power, for example, at least in the Swedish policies, it is not described as a dimension in connection to that. So that's an example of how gender comes in within some questions and is ignored in others. This is one example of subtask 3 work. And subtask 3 is the task which design new innovations with a gender and inclusive thoughts and behind it. And here we work with called Living Lab. So at Chalmers, there are student apartments which are also used for testing new technologies and new innovations in a very early stage. Of course, with the consent by those who live there. But this is a very practical work, and we do that in very close collaboration. So that was a bit short glimpse and some overall descriptions and some words about our global research program. And I really encourage you again, if you're interested, get in contact with me, and we might see that if you can connect into the program. So the second part of my presentation will be about that group that we know can be really part of a positive change within this area. So we, in some sense, need to go beyond the numbers in gender equality. And this is something that it seems that gender scholars are aware of. And a lot of research has been done on intersectionality and so forth. But it seems very hard to translate it into policies and actual change in the organizations. And there we tend to get stuck counting the numbers in binary terms than men and women, and we think of that as gender equality. And that is only one step in my view, and it seems also that a lot of gender research is moving in that direction, that we need to actually change the norms and behaviors and the cultures within organizations, and also put that into the policies. And here I've been doing quite a lot of empirical work, first to understand masculinities norms, because they are one of the barriers in to reach gender equality. Those masculinities norms which dominate different types of organizations, not only by men, but also through the cultures within those organizations. So in my empirical analysis, I've seen that we have industrial breadwinner masculinities, those who think nature only as a resource for humans and doesn't really care about the risks, and doesn't take climate science for real either, and are very conservative around the industrial modern society. I've also seen what's called eco-modern masculinities, which are those that recognize the climate crisis and environmental problems, but still think it's only about the emissions, and that we can solve everything with only technical solutions, taking away the emissions and not transforming the society. But I've also seen examples of what we call ecological masculinities and ecologicalization, in which organizations and humans taking part in a process of actually recognizing us humans as part of those ecosystems that we live with, and also recognizing that the climate crisis and the energy crisis is much more than technology. It's also about societal transformations that is needed. And this can be exemplified like this. This is an image of how we can understand the thinking about hierarchies and with upholding hierarchies with the industrial breadwinner masculinities. And also this, that we use resources from one side and just have waste on the other side, and that we are using the resources of the earth in this type of hierarchical behavior. The eco-modern then is trying to take a loop back with the resources, but not enough. There are still only technological solutions, as I said, and the hierarchies are more or less conserved also. But the ecologicalization or the ecological masculinities is actually trying to move towards a real circular economy and thinking about resources more intertwined with also human behavior. We who follow this subject know that the last IPCC report on mitigation really explicitly said that we need behavior change, we need ecological values, and we need environmental friendly norms. We need a huge transformation of society if we're going to take this really climate crisis and energy crisis challenge for real. And we also know from gender research that if we would change those in power or with a lot of influence, or those that have a lot of resources, it will make the largest difference. So if those who fly 10 times per year, for example, would only fly once or never fly, is of course a bigger change than if you only change those who fly once a year to stop flying. And it is this industrial breadwinner masculinities who are frequent flyers, who use a lot of energy, use a lot of resources. So can we find ways of actually changing these masculinities? That would be a really big opportunity within the energy field. So I've been working for quite some time now, a couple of years, to bring forward education material, leadership trainings on this type of issues. So the first one that we tried out was called Men in the Climate Crisis. It's a handbook for leadership education for this process of masculine ecologicalization. And we have worked together with an organization called Men for Gender Equality in Sweden, and brought their expertise on stopping men's violence against women and their expertise in conversation groups into our work, and connected this to our work with environmental and energy issues. This education has been evaluated and published as a paper also in an anthology. And I've continued with that evaluation, in 3 different research projects together with different stakeholders. Has been developed 3 different types of education material. I didn't. Elina, thank you very much. Printed out examples of it down here, so you can take a look and also bring with you if you're interested. So the first one, Let's Talk Masculinity Norms, is you have some cards that explicitly say is connected to norms, and then you put forward them, and then you talk about them, and you get to reflect upon these masculine norms in that sense. The second example is a comic album regarding masculinities, gender, and energy, funded by the Swedish Gender Equality Agency. And there is also both kind of recognition, you can read these comics, and then you're encouraged to gather in groups and talk about these type of issues and your reaction to them. And then the third example here, or the fourth example, I mean, of education material, is an education material that we did together also in a research project funded by the Swedish Energy Agency. And it's directed towards residents and those who live in apartments or collectives, and how they can talk about these type of issues in a way that is structured but also research-based. Okay, so with those words, I'm ending my presentation, describing both our global research program and also our education material for making change through norms and values in different types of organizations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So remember now, if you have any questions, then you can go to slido.com and we will get the questions here. But I have some from the organizers. So Martin, you are head of, oh, that's nice. I want to sit down too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have the sofa here.
Yeah,
it's good. I can see
a green one also.
Yes, a green one.
Yeah,
It's very,
really nice.
very fitting. Yeah. So you are head of the Global Research Network Center for Studies of Climate Change Denial. Taking the ecofeminism point of view here, do you have any observations between sustainable energy, inclusion of women, and climate change?
Yeah, the research on this issue is a bit both and. Climate change issues and women's issue has been combined since the Rio meeting 1992. And there's been a big push to include more and more women into the negotiations and into the groups coming there from different countries. And there's been some success in the numbers, but there's been very little success in changing the cultures and changing how climate change is actually affecting women and how it is part as a societal issue and those kind of things. So there's been some success, but the numbers have flattened out, and there's been quite little success in changing how we are dealing with the problem, so to speak. That research I haven't done myself, but Karen Marrow is one of the one that I can recommend. She's part of the anthology that we published in. What I can see in my research, I have studied the one group in Sweden, which spread disinformation regarding climate science in 2008 and 2009. And that was a group consisting of men and elderly men, and elderly men within the large-scale industries like forestry, like SCA, the Swedish company, and also within academia. And my analysis of that was that this industrial breadwinner masculinities is a way to kind of to protect the group identity, a group identity that these men have had throughout their life, and were very proud of building the industrial modern society. But now that this type of knowledge challenge their kind of life achievements, they have a problem to take that knowledge in, and instead they kind of protect the group identity, and so they dismiss or spread disinformation regarding climate science.
Because they feel that they have something to lose then, because, or that's perhaps also true. I mean, so it's, unfortunately. So I think there is a question there, but it's not, we can't see the entire question because it's now like scrolled a little bit in a bad way. So, I can see it from over there, but I can't see if it was... Okay, so the question now is, how can we engage men without blaming them for not doing enough for equality? I like that question.
It's a good question. I think that first, we need to recognize and be honest that men are not doing enough for gender equality. And I think, actually, it's the men's problem if they get offended by that. We need to be honest to say that. But I do think the work being done with masculinities, and also recognizing different forms of masculinities, at least that has been a comment from my and other researchers, that opens up for the idea of men also being part as a positive force in gender equality work. So not thinking in binary terms, men and women, and thereby blame the men, but think in masculinities term, and thereby we can be more specific who's the one that is lagging behind and blocking, but also we can create alliances in between humans that we actually work together. And in that sense, I think at least the work that has been done by the organization Men for Gender Equality that I work in collaboration with has been quite successful in engaging men in that sense.
Yeah, it's an important question because, I mean, no one likes to be blamed for something. No. There's another question, but I need to scroll some here because we can't see the entire thing. So, yes, okay. So, next question is, why do you call these different approaches to climate or energy as masculinities? What is the masculinity aspect?
That's a good question also. Empirically, I've been studying individuals who recognize themselves as men, and thereby the tradition of masculinity studies was kind of the way in which some of the ideas here could be explained and be kind of combined, and not saying that this is only psychology, individual psychology, or that they dismissed science, but also that what they were doing were part of structures in society, so to speak. So the masculinities concept is a way of taking the meso level for real, so that we humans are both part of the small world and also part of the bigger world, and that combination there is masculinity.
Okay, I see. Another question. how is your research received by fellow STEM research colleagues, for example, at Chalmers?
Yeah, overall very positive in the sense that we have received 3 internal research grants from Chalmers.
Wow.
So we are working together with the gender initiative at Chalmers called Genie. Chalmers realized 2018 that they had the lowest amount of numbers of female employees in Sweden at the universities, around 27%. And also that there was a lot of abuse and a lot of those kind of things that was witnessed around the Me Too. So that the culture was really bad for women and other gender identity at Chalmers. So we have had a lot of support in that sense for our research. But we have also met quite a lot of resistance because there is a lot of industrial breadwinner masculinities at Chalmers. There's also quite a lot of eco-modern masculinities, which and they get they're not used to, you know, men are not really used to think of themselves as a gender category.
No, because they're just like their default value.
Default. It's just the human.
Yeah, exactly. The human.
So this is both an opportunity to actually talk about important things with people, but it can also, it's an unusual discussion topic. Yeah. But we discuss it with students. Many of them are also keen to discuss on this, but also some are getting some pushbacks. Yeah.
So it's more positive than negative, at least.
Definitely.
Yeah, well that's good to hear. So we have time for one more question, and I must just say that I love that you're active on Slido and sending in the question. That's really great. So what are the first steps towards behavior change? Who's responsible?
Oh,
easy question.
Yeah, so I think that at least for the evaluation that we have been doing in our educations, it is important to, in some sense, get to the question as a more existential issue, so that it means something for people, and you need to find ways of opening it up as an emotional issue. And of course, then it's important with combining that with the knowledge, but also combining that with action, and not this collective action, so that people feel both supported by others, but also that they feel that they're doing something together with others. So those two things are important. And then, if you're going to turn that into a change of a whole organization, it really, really needs to be something that the leadership is supporting 150%. Because otherwise it may turn out that this becomes something that many are working really hard for at different levels in the organization. But then when the big decisions regarding change for the whole organization is going to be done, that work is not enough, so to speak. So it needs to be both up and down.
So actual, real leadership should support, not just like on paper, but real, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That's all we have time for. So thank you very much, Martin Hultman. Really interesting. So thank you.
Yep.
Hello. Please sit down, and we will go into this last session of this year's conference. So our next speaker now is joining us from University of Vasa to tell us about her research on socioeconomical perspectives, behavior, habits, and mindsets, and the importance of changing these to find new innovative, creative solutions, something that is very much needed to make the shift towards the sustainable energy sector. Petra Berg is an assistant professor at University of Vasa, School of Marketing and Communication, and Webic platform. Petra's research interests are in the areas of energy transitions, sustainability, and resilience in socio-technical macro-marketing systems, socio-cultural transition dynamics, energy behavior, biogas business and ecosystems, as well as green digitalization. Petra is also our only Finnish speaker and representing Finland, of course, in this conference. Very, very important to have the Finland hat. Okay, so Petra, now you will give your presentation on taking the fool's leap towards sustainability, socio-cultural perspectives to navigate future social, cyber, physical energy systems. Case ready, set. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hello, and yes, thank you for inviting me here as well, and being the only Finnish person in the room, so maybe I should talk Finnish also so that you get this cultural perspective. I was a little bit tired when I came up with this long name for my presentation, but it kind of explains what I'm aiming at explaining or telling you a little bit about here. And I'm actually wearing the same clothes as I'm in the picture. Damn it. Okay, good start. I do have other clothes as well, but not with me. Yeah, I'm working as an assistant professor at the University of Vaasa, and also at the WEBIC platform, which is the Vaasa Energy Business and Innovation Center. So that's a platform which works specifically with energy questions and energy projects. And I'm there as working as a project manager and also as a project researcher. And then there's this more academic side of me, which is then in the School of Marketing and Communication. And that's where my background is as well in marketing. So I've got both this kind of energy behavior or consumer behavior and business to business, as well as macro marketing. And then this really other thing that I've also been looking at has been in tourism. So I've got that was like a little bit of my earlier research. But at the moment, what I'm really focusing on in my project, so I'm a lot of these kind of hands-on projects. I'm just finalizing this biogas project where we were looking at how to accelerate how to get more biogas into the Ostrobotnian region. And that means working tightly together with municipalities, with local actors, businesses, people in general, and being out there with the people, talking to different actors and looking at how we could help the transition. Now I'm also going to talk about this cybersecurity project where I'm kind of involved, and well, there's been a bunch of other projects as well. But I also did defend my dissertation last spring. No, not last spring. This spring before 2021. And Martin was actually one of my examiners, so this is a funny coincidence that we're both here talking about pretty similar things, but from different perspectives, I hope. Well, enough about me. You can ask more if you start pondering about something. You can get my email and stuff from there. That was what I had been kind of writing into this. What I was the picture of what I'm going to talk about a little bit here. And I'm asking what are the tools in the end. So I'm gonna little bit try to take this kind of research theoretical work, what I've been doing and what I've been looking at in the field, and then I'm gonna try to mirror it a little bit to what we're doing now in Rediset, this cybersecurity digitalization project we are working with. And my perspective is maybe a little bit different now because I've noticed that many times, especially as researchers, we tend to forget that we are also those people we are researching. And as developers, we tend to forget that we are also the people that we kind of talk about. So we always talk about them, but many times we kind of forget that we are part of them. And this is all, especially in kind of research areas, is usually that you are the objective researcher. I would like to object to that and say that I don't think there's any individual who is objective, and I'll kind of talk about that. But let's start with this doom, doom, boom. That this is what the news are feeding us now, like daily, on a daily basis, for a long time. And research also shows that this kind of leading with fear is not a good factor for change. From consumer research, we know that when you try to nudge people or make habitual changes, fear or this kind of scaring somebody into doing something might be like this kind of a wake-up call, but the effects are usually not lasting. And the thing is that it doesn't really motivate. Fear doesn't motivate in the end. It's like, okay, you see a lion chasing you, and yes, you run, but after that you need to rest, kind of. You don't keep on running. That was a bad example, but anyway. So one thing I think, both as researchers or people actually working with these energy questions, also equality questions, is maybe a little bit being careful with that this kind of communication shouldn't be that much focused on always this. I think we had good discussions about that yesterday, that this kind of always focusing on what's wrong might not always be the key. And especially when we talk about these kind of global challenges and sustainability challenges, we might start looking into situations where the solutions really, really need to come from somewhere else than this typical, very dramatic and, if you don't do that, you will die, or that and that, because that doesn't give solutions to anyone. To make you understand a little bit why I'm talking about things I talk about, I'm going to bore you with a few slides with my research background, because just to explain a little bit where I'm coming from, where my thinking is coming from. One area is this called sustainability transitions, and there a specific perspective, or a specific area has been energy transitions because it's been so obviously needed. And there's a lot of research in this sustainability transitions group from looking at energy transitions from different perspectives. When we talk about energy transitions, one thing now is that people usually think that it's the green transition, that energy transition somehow means that it's something that's going to be better. Energy transitions have been all kinds of energy transitions. That means when you change from one energy mode, like, for example, energy source to another. So they are not necessarily sustainable. Today, we kind of take for granted that the energy transition is sustainable when we talk about it, but that hasn't always been the case. And I think it's very good to be critical today as well. Sustainability transition is really trying to change things in society to a better, more sustainable perspective, though. And what this kind of research hasn't really looked at are these macro level trends, which I'm going to talk about a bit more, and which Martin was talking about, for example, or these micro levels, so these consumer user perspectives. It's more about businesses and governance on local level, and how you kind of make that change. And one really, really important thing which boils to this gender equality or equity thinking is that transitions always involve power. So you have empowered and you have people without power. And I think that's something which is very much linked also to what we have been discussing these days. But power is so tricky to talk about because it's in our structures, it's everywhere, and at the same time it's very difficult to pinpoint. But gender always deals with power, in my opinion, because it kind of gives the right to somebody to talk about something and somebody else shouldn't, for example, or so on. Just a quick view of how you work with transitions. A lot of symbolism, a lot of visualization. That was wrong, the word. That means that, especially for people like me who are cropped with numbers and structures, I'm very visual. So everything I can see or paint or taste or smell, whatever, has a much more impact than actually somebody showing me an Excel with numbers, and I'll be like, oh my God, okay, I don't even, well, Karina knows that I'm not very good with Excels. Another thing, then, what I also research background, I have to be a little bit faster with this, has then been marketing systems and energy behavior. So that's then me more really looking at my home research from what we are doing at the university. And there specifically this marketing system theory is looking at systems. So it actually says that anything that has to do with exchange, humans kind of live through exchanging something of value. And what has happened with cultures throughout the time is that when we notice that something is sought after, we usually start specializing. So that's how you get specialization. And when you take this thinking to this energy system transition, we can think about that these are very old systems which have been building up through years, because it's always thinking and then doing. So you think, then you construct. You collectively agree upon something, and then you do it. So nothing is really like, most things, even technologies, are not disruptive because they have been built into a system. So they are slowly kind of entering systems. And that means that when a technology is embedded in a system, it's already communicating with, so we are all the time, as users, we are kind of, what do you call it, we are, our practices are built around certain technologies, and certain technologies are chosen by us because we think certain ways. So we are very embedded in these socio-technical systems. And then when you add culture into this mess, that means you kind of grow up thinking that this is the way things are. And marketing systems, as a background theory, is maybe a way of making it more visible that, okay, in this system, this is how people make exchange, and this is how people think about that. And it's kind of starting to picture a reality and what's going on inside that reality. Especially interesting with what for me it's especially interesting, has been then this research about dominant social paradigms. Because this theory kind of tries to explain these macro level factors, which we are born into that. So we are born into certain social systems, which means that we are socialized into certain ways of doing, habits. And when we try to break habits, I mean, everybody who's tried to, quit smoking or do a detox or whatever, which is not habitual, knows how difficult it is to break it, because there's so many things involved in your habits which you would have to think differently. And when you look at the dominant social paradigm, that means that you have certain drivers which are even over-cultural. So we're talking about the Western dominant social paradigm, which means that in a way we live in very westernized cultures nowadays, where consumption, where this kind of ownership, this kind of leadership, or maybe we could also say these masculinities have been very much the driving force. And when we try to break with all these structures, this kind of path-dependent mental models, we are dealing with a lot of stories, myths, very stuck mental models, which are not even something that most of us kind of, it's not like you wake up in the morning and I'm stuck in this thinking because I grew up in that place and then people did like that. Because that's the bubble you live in, which means that it's very difficult to start seeing something outside the system where you are at. And that's when we are really kind of in that system, we have a tendency to think that's the only reality, and that these realities can only go in certain directions. Well, what I did in my PhD actually was that I started to think about the energy transition in Finland as this kind of energy agora. And that agora word comes from Greece, so it was the old town square in Greece where everybody would go. And you would have the politicians, you would have the citizens, you would have the people bartering and selling, you would have the people gossiping. So everybody would make themselves shown. The politicians would tell people, trying to communicate their ideas, making everybody to, vote for them. And people would exchange the bankers. I don't know what happened on a Greek square at that time, but I would imagine that it was very much all levels of society were out there. And when you think about the dominant social paradigm, then you have to think about institutional structures. And then when you think Energy Agora, how do people communicate? It's through language. And that's where you start to think that institutions as translation. So all of us who would be in this Agora kind of carry our structures with us all the time. So when we talk to somebody or when we try to persuade someone, we are using our kind of toolkit, our bag of structures, which we communicate from. And we take that as a granted reality because that's how we see things. And when we look at a square like that, we might end up with a lot of people with very different kinds of bags. And still we somehow have to agree upon, okay, how do we make things work here? I know this is a bit of an abrupt jump now suddenly from the Greek, or that was a medieval agora, and then we are suddenly in this very digital cyber world. What does this agora have to do with ReadySet? Well, this is the modern world, and this is the modern square. And even if the tools are much tougher now, maybe, it's not that much swords, but we have all kinds of cyber attacks and trolling and different ways of trying to use GPS signals to destroy, make a blackout somewhere and so on. We're still dealing with the same questions. We're still basically dealing with human behavior, okay? We have artificial intelligence, which is kind of also mixing into the game now, but we are still kind of bartering the same agora, and we're still kind of asking what's for value for who and how do we exchange this value. And then who are these people in this little agora who are trying to make sense of it? Well, we have people we have a very good gender balance. And I'll say that this ReadySet project is actually kind of born out of NEEN, the network. So in that way, it's very connected to this conference as well. And it was formed by 3 ladies. I won't say any names, but they are all here in the room and in the photo. Sonja and Karina and me did this project proposal. And now we have, I think, at least 8 different cultural backgrounds. We have 8 different cultures right now in this project. And I think we're quite 50-50, men and women. And the reason why I'm not talking so specifically much about just gender and women, I think it's more diversity, which is my kind of maybe aim. But on the other side, I think gender is always such a big part of the diversity discussion right now. But then when you add the sociocultural and these different structures for people who are from all over the globe trying to understand a new phenomena, that makes this kind of a project interesting already as just a project, and how you actually start managing to have these people work together. How do we communicate? So now we have landed in the fool. Why am I then talking about the fool, and why am I calling people fools? As I'm really fond of looking at symbols and symbolic interaction and what drives our subconscious, I've been reading quite a lot of this Jungian psychology and his work on dreams, and also understanding how people have been communicating with symbols all throughout our history. And one of the best places to find symbolism, which kind of where you can try to understand and really start looking for all these different meanings, are tarot cards. And there are 78 cards in a tarot deck, but 22 of them are so-called major arcana, which means that all of them have a quite big, yes, I know, big significance. And they are numbered from 0 to 22. And this fool is the one who starts the whole round. And we're talking about this kind of a fool's journey, or the hero's journey as well, if we stick to mythology, which means that and if we borrow from Jung now, he said that all of us carry all of these archetypes. So all of this is kind of hidden in everybody's subconscious. And now, if we think about, for example, the STEM as a very structured and numerical area, and then we get into this type of thinking, which is all about intuition, about very deep drivers. I think that's where especially women or this diversity thinking comes in, because it's not just getting those engineers into the STEM areas. Of course, we need those women as well, but what we really have to start doing is to make more space for a lot more thinking, because we have such complex problems. And now I'm running out of time, so I'll speak really quickly. So what the Fool is doing is, the Fool is the one who just completed that cerebral round, had a lot of experiences and probably a lot of cultural clashes, traumas, whatever. When the Fool stands at point 0, that means the Fool is prepared for the next round. And the thing what I think we should take away from the Fool is that the Fool stands on the edge, and the Fool has no real idea of what's waiting, but the Fool kind of has to throw itself out there. And that's what we're kind of doing in transition, in sustainability questions right now. We don't really have we can't use old answers, we can't use old structures. So what are we going to do? So we're going to have to start leaning into this kind of intuition and also more creativity. And that's what I think about the Fool, that I think everybody needs to start learning how to be a little bit of a fool when taking that mindset. You can't carry all of your structures with you, but we need to start seeing our own structures when we start trying to solve big problems. So the last slide, the second last slide, where do we learn from? Obviously from nature. I'm trying to become a permaculturist, which means that I'm trying to learn to grow with nature instead of against it. And I found this in this book just a few months ago. And this guy Hemingway is saying that it's in these edges, that's where all this diversity flows, because that's where two different structures meet. So, for example, the field and the forest, that's where most insects are, that's where the most animals are, that's where the biggest buzz is. And I think this is something, this kind of thinking is exactly what we start aiming for, that it's not the field, it's not the forest, it's the edge. And what do we find in the edge, and what kind of things do we allow ourselves to find? Because it's a lot about this kind of thing as well, allowing yourself to actually dive into something you maybe don't believe in, but you might have to look into it. So that's me, thank you. Yes, that was the Fool.
Thank you, and join me in the sofa.
Yes.
Oh, there's also already a question. Calling a fresh start mindset a fool's mindset sounds negative. Do you agree? Isn't that terminology counterproductive?
Well, the Fool's been around quite a long time because the tarot has been around, and I think the Fool wasn't a negative aspect earlier. It was more that it has had its own role in society. And I don't know, obviously today if you call somebody a fool and I'm saying please be like a fool now, I'm sure you're not going to be very positive about it, so that's true. But, so yeah, I don't know. Probably we can find some nicer word for, the wanderer or the explorer, but the Fool explains a little bit what the idea is about.
Yeah, and now you explained it, so yeah, but I guess just going around calling people fools and you would, it wouldn't work.
You might have to explain a little bit more.
How are you being foolish in your work?
Well, if you talk about me personally, very foolish, usually like this social science background person who dived into this energy transition with all these electric engineers.
Sounds foolish.
So I was only foolish because nobody really even understood my questions.
Yeah.
But I think if you really kind of aim at becoming a fool the way I was presenting it, then I think it's more about starting to really dig into where you come from. we are, as I said earlier, I think we're very good at telling everybody else what we think about them or which kind of structures or how we see it. But where do I stand as a researcher, as a person, and where do my beliefs come from? And especially when you have a lot of this kind of cultural groups working together who have very different cultural backgrounds. So even if we're trying to be very nice to each other and understand each other, but there are many things that actually impact how we allow each other, you know, what we allow each other to think, where do we take things? How do we, like, I think it has a lot to do with this Diversity 2.0. Yesterday was saying that everybody should be allowed as they are. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit like the fool as well, that, you know, you are like this. This is where I come from. Because then you play with open cards, so to say.
What mental models do you think the energy sector should get rid of? What do you think about that?
Well, I think we've had quite a lot of these good explanations here already. I think, okay, now I'm out in really dangerous waters here, but I think we should a little bit tone down this kind of engineers are saving the world mentality, because obviously they have the technical solutions and they know how to build things, but if they just build things without asking people how people actually want to live, then we have a problem. Yeah. And this is what has been kind of happening in the energy transition this far, that it has been always this kind of technology, economy first, and then it's like, oh, you are angry because there are windmills popping up all around your village. Like, why are you angry? Like, yeah, nobody asked them. So I think that we should kind of start,
well, coming from more the, I'm not an engineer, but a physicist, and coming from that, and I must admit that often when I talk to kids or younger students, I do use that phrase more like that you're part of saving the world, and I guess to defend myself, I think often that you do it because, or I see that many people don't see that the engineers actually are doing something for a better world, and that they're just like interested in numbers. So I guess, but yeah, we all need to be try to think of the bigger picture and ask questions with what we say and do and why, maybe.
Yeah, and I totally I think engineers do save the world, because we need people who understand how those machines work. It's just that I think it's a bit with the whole transition right now. I think we're aiming at something new, which means that we just have to start finding new ways of expressing things. And we need to get out of those silos. And it's
absolutely
just for everybody. And I mean, if we're all part of this collective world, then we are all kind of trying to save the world or ourselves. We could talk about that as well. Who are we actually saving?
But then we're also over again to diversity. We need different kinds of people, different perspective, different backgrounds, different interests, and from different engineers and everyone. I guess.
And I think that's where gender discussions have had a very good, important role. That we are forcing everybody to look themselves in the mirror and also look at the structures, because this is exactly breaking all structures.
Absolutely. So how have you challenged your own beliefs?
Oh dear. Like, how long do we have?
Well, 3.5 minutes.
No. Well, let's say anyone who's done research, PhD, knows that it is a fool's journey in a way.
Absolutely.
I think you go through all those tarot cards, kind of. You have the tower moments where everything crashes and there's only darkness and you see nothing.
You feel so stupid.
And you feel so stupid and you know nothing, and then you have these moments when you're like, oh my God, you know, and it's like, okay, I know nothing. But it's I didn't think when I kind of by mistake started to said, okay, I'm going to start doing my PhD. I didn't think that it would be such a big deal. I thought it's just, you know, I do the research and whatever. I didn't know that it was this kind of a mental
journey.
Mental journey. And especially towards the end, that's when you realize that, shit, everything I've put down here, I have to stand for this.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I don't want to do this. And I think for me it was the deadline. I didn't have time to think how bad this was. I just had to finish it, and
Yeah.
I think that happens with many. But so in a way, that's a really good example how you are forced to start taking responsibility, and I think that's one issue maybe I would like to highlight.
Yeah.
That when you challenge yourself, it's about like becoming a little bit adult in the way that, okay, it's easy to say this, but what do I base it upon?
Yeah.
And also, how do I relate to other people? Like from being a very, well, whatever, who cares, to starting to actually kind of trying to listen to, that's very hard for me to listen to others because I talk a lot. But kind of really trying to start understanding where somebody comes from and what they are saying and where they talk from, instead of just, if somebody's quite saying something very different, instead of being like,
It's hard though,
it's
to
totally,
actually listen to other people.
it's like the hardest ever.
Yeah.
To calmly sit there and
Yeah.
listen to somebody who's like totally of the opposite,
Yeah.
or has like, and then start finding a middle way. But I think that's a part of this kind of, I think we have to start growing up a little bit, like humans as well.
So I think that we will end there, but end by that we should all start growing up as humans. Isn't that kind of? I mean, that's a take-home message.
It's like the teenage years are now over. It's time to become adults, you know.
Time to become adult.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Petra.
Thank you.
And now we've actually come to our last speaker. Zaira Aladdin is a Director, Asset Operation and Maintenance at Vattenfall. She arrived in Oslo only a moment ago, and she is asking the question of how we can take the next concrete step to achieve the climate goals. In this process, clear goals with gender equality work are as important as financial goals. And why can't we afford to avoid using all competence to develop towards a fossil-free future? Throughout her over 20 years in the energy sector, Zaira has not only contributed to with technological and managing know-how, but also actively pursued equality and diversity within the field. As a result, she was elected Power Woman of the Year in 2018 by Kraftkvinnorna, that we also heard from yesterday. So what better way to close this conference than by ending with encouraging and incentive to us all, and you will present everyone is needed to reach a fossil-free future. So, Zaira, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Big thanks to having me here, and I'm glad to being here because I have a very long journey today because it was a chaos in Arlanda. But I'm glad that I'm here. I can start with everyone is needed to reach a fossil-free future. Are you agree? Yes? I already presented. My name is Zaira Aladdin. I'm responsible for the operation and maintenance within the distribution in Vattenfall. In my unit, we are around 300 people, and we are located in 3 cities, Trollhättan, Stockholm, and Luleå. Distribution is also located in Umeå right now, but I don't have any employees there. We have the operation center in the city Trollhättan. And there is I'm also born in that city. So I am 43 years old, and I have 2 sons. One 18 years old, and one is 6. And as I don't know her name, but as she told that I have a long experience. I have been in the energy sector in 25 years. I started with the technician. I was outside in the field when I studied, like electrician and technician, and then I started as engineer and in ABB and traveled a lot in the whole world. Then I come to the consultant company and have been there a long time and build a company, a team within transformation substations. So it's my background. And when I had worked around 15 years in the field, then I started to, after my years as a group manager, and I wanted to be coming up higher, then the glass ceiling, it was like I understand that it was not so. It was not enough to just make a good job. You have to wear a dark suit and you have to be a white man for coming more. So I started with working with diversity and inclusion, and it was late. It was around 2015 I started to work with these questions. And in the energy sector, we were around 20%, 23% women, and the managers were only 10%. So it was very interesting. And the higher manager positions, it was no one. I just maybe one or two in the whole energy sector. So it was interesting to see. So fossil-free within one generation. It is even possible. Vattenfall have decided to make the impossible to possible. And the electrification we are facing right now is the biggest transformation in the society after the Industrial Revolution. And Vattenfall have a commitment towards this net zero. We have to reduce the emissions until 2040 until zero in several stages. Until 2030, we will take all our suppliers have to be the CO2 reductions in our in Vattenfall's own job. And until 2040, it's important to check the whole value of chain, that they are all our suppliers and our other companies have to, the requirements have to be net zero. So it's a big challenge, and I don't think that every company have their requirements, but Vattenfall has taken one step more. And the climate is the all-over agenda right now. So, yeah, we are facing the electrification revolution right now. And in Sweden, the production is already fossil-free, but we have to make the transport sector and the industry to the fossil-free. So the network and the capacity is the biggest question right now. So it's a big challenge. And if we want to succeed, so we have to make several things. We have to, for example, increase the social acceptance, because everyone needs electricity and fossil-free, but we don't want this wind farms and these overhead lines and substations. So it's in Sweden, it's a big process to get permit for the processes. So we have to make everyone has to talk about how important this is for the society, so we can get this acceptance from the people. And the biggest challenge we have is to secure competencies. The competencies is a big lack in the energy sector. And the 50% of population is women. If we don't take advantage of mixed groups, we are not going to succeed to our goals. Our history started with the heroes who built the energy Sweden. It was needed a lot of innovation and hard work, and it was almost men. Lot have changed. The infrastructure is changed, and even how you look, who was working with the energy sector. So why is diversity and inclusion matter? I don't think that I have to speak so much about that, because all of you right now know why it is so important. It's good for the people to have mixed groups and work with mixed groups, not only one gender. It makes more creativity, innovation, and you feel good. If you feel good, that's make good results. If you have good results, it's good for the business, and is it good for the business, then it's good for the whole society. So it's like obvious that we have to work with these questions. So what have happened since 2015 within Vattenfall? Before 2015, the gender equality and diversity, it was not so a big issue. We didn't speak about it. But after that, something happened, and it's all over the agenda. Some companies have make more, have succeeded to come to a more, have a structured roadmaps, and some companies don't have right now. But Vattenfall is very, very good and is leading in the energy sector. Since 2015, we have increased the balance between women and men, and increased the diversity within the company. And we have the understanding and knowledge about the benefits, why it's important, and develop a culture, because you have to make both structural changes and the cultural changes, because if you don't change the culture, when the women come, then they will not stay. So it's important to work with both of them. So you both change the statistic and the culture within the company. We have appointed a diversity and inclusion officer in the group management, in the highest Vattenfall management. So they have their role in 2 years, and they're, you can see here, in the Vattenfall's overall leadership. So you have the responsible to make this diversity and inclusion in overall agenda. So what is the roadmap to get the diversity and inclusion in the whole company? You have to first map the current diversity and inclusion status, set a strategy and business principles, then follow up. It's very, very important to have figures to measure how it's going. We have to appoint at least 35% of the female managers. So you have to, and when you are going to recruit women or managers, so you have to have 1 man and 1 woman in the last candidates. And it's very important to secure D&I in all processes and develop engagement and knowledge about in the management team, because the management team have the big responsible how the people in the company is if they are feeling well or not. So the management team have to learn what this diversity actually means and develop a culture. So it's a big strategy, and it takes time to start with the top and go down with within all levels. It's very, very important. And it's important that a management team at the top level is engaged within these questions. It's not only a question about women to make. So, how can we get the change? You have to, like energy sector is a very, very traditional industry. you have to think beyond and what is not normal. In Sweden especially, everything is so normal. So if you don't are similar like as others, then you are not fully competent, for example. If you look younger, then you are full of fördomar. Yes. So you have to broaden your perspective to make that everyone needs in the industry sector, not in only the industry sector, all sectors. So we have to broaden our minds, everyone, even me. The energy industry will employ over 68,000 employees, spread over 1,000 companies. So it's very, very much needs the coming years. And we need to become many, many more, and we need specialist competencies. The new generation are not so interested to be specialists. Everyone wants to be generalists. So we have to find these competencies so we're interested to be the specialist. And we need new type of competencies, not only the traditional technician or electrical engineers. We need all type of competencies. So when you recruit, so you have to think that you can find women from other industries also. So it's not like only this energy sector. Here's some examples of roles we need. It's very, very broad. So it's not only the traditional electrical engineer. So how do we get interacting with others to get more broad recruitment and attract more other people? We have collaboration with schools and a university, and we create interest among young people, because when you already are in university, it's already too late. It's important to create interest within the technician companies in very, very young age. Me, for example, I was in the 8th graduate when we all girls was invited to go a technician technique group in the summer, and we got 50 kronor per day. It was like the beginning of the 90s. So it was too much money for me. So I think 10 days and 50 kronor, it will be 500 kronor. So I signed up, and it was interesting. We built like this sladdar. And we had, we get introduced to the technician jobs. So it's important to start very, very early to get the interest and make role models can come out and show that you don't need to be like some boring people. It's a very broad. Everyone is there. We have collaboration with companies who makes recruit foreigners who's coming, and we give them job. So it's also we have starting to diversity. It's only not gender question. It's only the whole diversity. So we also make this type of collaboration. And we have to think the big potential in the wide recruitment. So not thinking, and it's so easy to say to make it, but in the reality, it's not so obvious. If you are searching to a job, and you have like hundreds appointments, it's not easy to choose someone who is not, because you already have so many appointments who already have the experience and they are men. So it's not easy. But the manager who is recruiting is so important to think beyond and thinking what is good for the team, what is good for the future, and how much time I can give to learn this person, if the person have the potential. But it's not easy, I know that, because I recruit also managers, and I know that it's an easy way. Just take one and in the company directly, or take someone who don't have the experience. The knowledge is a hygienic factor, so that's the knowledge it's important to have. But I think that management knowledge you can build it, you can learn that, so you don't fix that you can learn, but it takes more time. The results so far. Vattenfall have increased the gender and equality and diversity in all levels. You can see since I have the managers' appointments have increased since 2019, and when kraftkvinnorna get appointed Vattenfall to be a very diversity company, and we are very engaged in these questions even outside Vattenfall. Here you can see some numbers. I have a better here. From 2014 to 2021, we have increased the female managers from 18% in Vattenfall to 30%. So it's a big change. So, and within the other energy companies, it's not so obvious that they got some companies who have increased, but not in that way. And if I see. So you can see the managers and the employees and the appointed managers. It's very important to have a measurement about the appointments so we can the new recruitments have to increase. And in Vattenfall distribution, where I am, we are around 1,000 employees totally, and we are in the management team. We are 67% women, and 42% managers in the distribution. So it's a very good figures. This is a picture about we measured engagement, and Vattenfall have a good engagement rate if you compare with other companies within same industry. So if you measure the engagement and how you have the the development, that it's very equal for everyone to develop. You can ask them all the time, your employees, and see what level you can come. So, thanks.
Thank you. Please. Oh, you already have a question from the audience. If I'm not a leader, how can I initiate diversity and inclusion policy in my organization?
You can build a team, a mixed team, and get support from someone who is manager, because it's you can get more power in the team. So it's not alone. You can't work alone with these questions, but you can get engaged, like build a team. I built a team when I was in Sweco, because I was very, very frustrated. I had worked as a group manager in 5 years, and I wanted to go to a higher up manager. And no one higher manager was women. And I started a group, and in that group, I had 2 young girls who tried to start this network before me, but they didn't get any. So I understand that no one is listening, I think. But we get together, and we mixed even men from higher level, and so both women and men, and we built a team, and we set structural like measurements, and started to working with this team. So you can find someone who can support you.
But what do you mean by that you built a group? What kind of group was this? Was it like a network, or was
yes,
it
started with a network, and we started as only for women.
Yeah.
My idea, because I'm from another generation, I thought that our generation wants to more like confidence. We need to confident women. They have to say, yes, I want to be managers. But the new generation, they said, no, we have the confidence. We just wanted to have same equal rights to come. So it's a generation gap. So I learned from them, and I thought, yes, of course, it's not only a question for women. So the network started with the women, when we included for men also. So when we got the men into it, and men from the higher position, then it was more like you could do more difference.
Yeah.
So it's more easier.
You also said that that there were women that had tried that before, but they hadn't succeeded.
Yes, two girls.
Okay.
Because it's more. It's not important. It's more. It's not easy to get listened if you are just coming from the school and don't have the experience. And they are more. The new generation are more interested in these questions.
Yeah.
And what our generation is. My generation's women, they say, "What is the problem?" It's no problem. So the women are more like, no. It's just like doing like this.
Yeah.
But it's not okay. Not in this time.
No.
You have to have equal rights. You don't need to have
the elbows.
be the strong or have the like the. So it's in the reality, in the theory, of course, everyone has to. You have to listen to everyone. But now I'm talking about the reality. What's happening in a company when a new educated girl comes in a company and started to work with these questions? I don't think that it is take more time, and it's frustrating.
Frustrating, yes.
Yes.
Another question.
But don't give up.
Don't give up.
Make the frustration to energy and make some plan.
Turn it into
something good.
Use the frustration.
Use the frustration, the energy to something positive. And to think that your time is coming. You have the right things, but your time is coming.
Okay. Another question from the audience. Do you have recommendations on how to formulate a job ad to sound more inclusive and attract new competencies?
Yes, you mean in the appointment?
Yes.
Yes. Make it more broad, not specifically with 10 bullet points you can check, because this is like I have tested within my group also. Men can check 2 points and even send the application, but women have to check every 10 for send the application. So if you make a broad and then check the personality in the interview, is more, you can get more above from the recruitment if you don't make it too small. For example.
So that's also then for women to also be more aware of this thing,
Yes.
that men can check 2 of the boxes and then apply and have the confidence, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But that women feel that they have to check all of them. So I guess that's also some
Courage.
awareness.
Yes,
about-
awareness and courage.
Yes.
No. And most of the role models in the managers who are already working too hard and nights and evening, and the young girls got afraid. No, I don't. I want balance. I don't want to work so much. But it's also important who are the role models. I check my managers who are working a lot. That what are you sending? So have a balance. All managers in all level have to have balance to make not scare up the new generation or other women who are thinking about to be manager but not have the courage because they think that you have to work all the time.
Yeah. I thought there was another question, but now it's gone. No, so maybe that was the last question then that we answered. So then I would just like to thank you, Saira, for your presentation, and that you were very happy that you managed to come in with the troubles. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. In my presentation, I have a link on a small film of Vattenfall produced about diversity and inclusion. If you want to show that, you can just in the last page in the thank you.
We show it now, or
Yes?
yes, yeah. Was that possible? Did you hear?
Okay, you can send it to the...
Okay. I can take
Thank
this
you very
one.
much.
Thank you very much, Saira. So that was the last presentation, and 2 inspiring and intense days of discussions have come to an end. We would like to thank every audience member and every speaker for participating. The constructive output of this conference could not have happened without your contributions. And again, I would just really like to thank you all for all the questions coming in on Slido. So that was really great. We would also like to thank you to SALT, who hosted us, and to Triple M, who managed the technicalities. And then I would like to invite with me Sofia Elamson from NEEN to give us some closing remarks. So, Sofia, please.
Thank you, Sunniva. I would also like to say thank you to everyone who has been attending these days here at SALT and also online, of course. It's been great. Also thank you to the speakers who have contributed to a really great program. I really think we had an interesting program this year, and it's really good to see all these different perspectives, people with different backgrounds coming together and giving their presentations. I think this is one of the main purposes of NEEN, to combine all these people so you're not only in one field, so that's really great. Thank you also to Sunniva. You have been great as a moderator, also keeping really cool during our technical difficulties, which we have sometimes had, so thank you. I have been a part of Nordic Energy Equality Network since 2019, when it was founded, as a secretary. And I can say working at Nordic Energy Research, working with NEEN is one of the funniest tasks that I have. Because I'm interested in the subject, but also because you get to meet all these great, cool people. And after 2 years of pandemic, this event this year, it made me, it was a reminder to me that there are so many bright minds who want to contribute to this task. So I find it really inspirational. So that's really great. So finally, I think there will be another event coming up in the fall, so please stay tuned. Visit our website and join our group on LinkedIn. Also, if you know someone, or if you should maybe be on our list of female experts that's on the website, you can have a look at that and contact us to be included. That's one of the ways that we are highlighting women in this sector, so that's also possible. So, hope to see you soon again, and please keep in touch. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.